Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Eggerding. Welcome to second semester. This is your first video for this unit and we are going to talk about determining factors of a polynomial. Now before we do that, I just want to do a quick review of the division of polynomials. When I set it up with my class, we do have to remember to hold places of any of the terms that are missing. So in this case it's missing an x squared, so we have a 0x squared. So I'm going to write down the coefficients 2, 0, 1, and 2. And then when we complete our division, we talk about what makes the x plus 1 0, and we're going to use the negative 1. It starts by bringing down the 2, and then it becomes a process of multiply and then add going down. So negative 1 times negative 2, you multiply it to get 2, add going down 3. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3, add going down, and that's negative 1. Now that's just the work to provide your answer. We need the answer to this division, and what we have left here are the coefficients of our answer. So since this was an x, or an x to the third being divided by x, this 2 is my x squared minus 2x plus 3, and on the end we have a remainder of negative 1 that's written as negative 1 over x plus 1. So that's the answer to our division. And then we ended talking about, okay, what else does this remainder tell us? And this remainder tells us the y coordinate when x equals negative 1 of that polynomial, 2x to the third plus x plus 2. In other words, f of negative 1 is negative 1. So we're going to use this idea of this remainder to help us find factors. Now before we talk about factors of polynomials, let's go back to some grade school and talk about factors of other things. Let's say talk about factors of 18. So factors of 18 are 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. These are the pairs of numbers multiplied together equal 18. But they also have another interesting characteristic. If I take a factor and take 18 divided by any of those factors, so 18 divided by 2 is 9, but the important part is that there is no remainder when I divide them. 18 divided by 3, it's 6 with no remainder. If I were to try to take 18 and divide it by some other number that's not in this list, 18 divided by 5 goes in 3 times with a remainder of 3. So it would be 3.6 or 3 3/5. And this 3 up here, it has a remainder, which tells us that 5 is not a factor. And we're going to use this idea about remainders and no remainders in the exact same way when we're talking about polynomials. So let's take a look at this first one. First question is going to be to decide whether, and we give you the binomial x plus 2, deciding if it's a factor of the first one. We're going to do the division, and the question is, what's the remainder after you do the division? Factor of a polynomial, we're looking at what's the remainder. If the remainder equals 0, that tells me I have a factor. If the remainder does not equal 0, that tells me I don't have a factor. And that's what we're going to do to answer these. So my coefficients are 5, negative 14, and 10. I'm going to be dividing by negative 2. Synthetic division, bring down the 5. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. Add going down. Multiply, that's 48. Add 58. I have a remainder. This remainder does not equal 0, so the answer is no. X plus 2 is not a factor. It does not divide in evenly. So let's try the same thing on this one here. And for this one, I'm going to have you guys set up the division on your own. Pause your video, do the synthetic division on your own, and see if you can decide whether or not it's a factor, and then press play again. Okay, so here's the work for my synthetic division. I came down to the end, and I have a 0 on the end, no remainder. Since this remainder equals 0, that tells me yes, that x minus 1 is a factor. And in fact, what we're going to be doing later on is talking about how this thing factors and practice breaking these things down into their factors. But for right now, we're just worried about if the remainder is 0, then yes, I have a factor. Now in class we talked about things being a 0, and just now I talked about things being a factor. And it seems like both of them are doing the exact same thing, but the two words are pretty different. First of all, a factor is a polynomial. Okay, it divides in evenly, it has no remainder, and it can be used to write the larger polynomial into smaller pieces. But it is a polynomial. In this case, it was the binomial x minus 1, where when you have something called a root, it's the actual number that you're dividing by. And it has other names. It could be called a 0. It could be called an x-intercept. All three of those words are interchangeable. Root, 0, x-intercept all mean the same thing. Those names work because it occurs when the y-coordinate, which is the remainder, equals 0. So, your assignment. Now we're going to do things a little bit different this semester. We have a short assignment, page 329, 5, 7, and 9, and make sure you check your answers in the back of the book. Also, log into your Schoology class. There is a quiz that goes with it, and it's in the materials section, and it's called Unit 6 Video 1 Entrance Slip. And I think it's like 4 questions long. Completion and the accuracy of that quiz is going to become part of your homework grade. So make sure you get on and take care of that. If you do questions 5, 7, and 9 correct, you'll be able to do the Schoology quiz. The big goal for this, what we're going to be asking you to do in the homework, is to be able to determine if a given binomial is a factor of a polynomial and explain why. It will be a factor of a polynomial if the remainder equals 0. Bring your questions to us, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.